here. You're to be the one that's to receive all the praise and the glory. That sounds like workings of the devil, doesn't it? And so what did he do? They tricked him. They deceived him into it. He signed it. Then he was really sorry about it later. But oh, God was with Daniel. Daniel didn't stop praying, right? Daniel kept praying. They came and called him and put him in the lion's den. God took care of him. But I'm going to tell you something. I don't read during this time where God's saving people from being killed. It's not happening. That's a price people are going to have to pay because they didn't serve God the first time. But there is a promise of those that die for His cause. There is a promise. Turn to Daniel chapter number 7 real quick. Daniel chapter 7. Verse 7. Daniel chapter 7, verse 7. Isn't this amazing that God, just think about this. This just amazes me. How God gave this vision to Daniel. Now, here's the amazing thing. When you read this, you're going to say, well, gosh, that sounds like what John saw. Well, that's because God said, I don't change. Huh? God knew back then what was going to happen. Isn't that amazing? God knew at the beginning of the foundation of the world what was going to happen. Now, why don't people trust God? That's free. I'm not going to charge you for that. That's free. I just think that's amazing. How you begin to read in the Old Testament, and there's prophetic word for stuff that ain't even happened yet. Amazing. Verse 7. It says, after this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth, and it devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. This is going to be the 10 reigning kingdoms at the end time. These are going to be the 10 leading countries, whatever you want to call them. These are going to be the 10 leaders of the world at the time. And it says in verse 8, I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns, plucked up by the roots, and behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things. Here we see the same tie to what Revelations talked about with the Antichrist, with a mouth speaking great blasphemies. You see, there will be 10 nations that will be kind of the leaders of what's going on. He's going to rise up in the midst of that, and he's going to destroy 3 of them. He will make war with 3 of those nations. We read in the second seal that was being loosed, we saw in the first one that there was a rider on a white horse with a bow, and he was given a crown, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. He went and he conquered 3 nations. Seal 2 talks about war. He conquered 3 of those nations. Then all of a sudden the other 7 begins to bow down to him, saying, who is able to make war with him? Y'all see the similarity? You see the tie? Do you see the joining together of what happens? Isn't it amazing? God talked about this in the Old Testament. Don't you think that's amazing? He is an amazing God. Flip over to verse 23. Verse 23 says, thus he said, the 4th beast shall be the 4th kingdom upon the earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth. Again, here's another part where I struggle within myself. I don't know what it's actually going to be like. Nobody actually knows what it's going to be like. Can I tell you that? You won't know till you experience it. But here again, it tells me that it's going to involve the whole earth, not just one particular area. But then when I read other things, it talks about smiting. We're not getting into that tonight. That's going to be part of the next seals. But we'll see when he begins to send forth all these things and they begin to smite a third of what's in the earth. Well, what about the other 2/3? You know, does it just mean they're only going to hurt a third of the people in the whole earth itself and leave 2? I don't know. But when I read here, it tells me that there will be an effect over the whole earth. There will be an entire earth effect from this. Now, the fact of where it's going to be and what it's going to do, nobody really knows that because it's not here yet. And God doesn't tell us specifically in the Word. In Revelation, He doesn't say specifically where it will be. But now I'm going to tell you this, He's going to be over there. But I believe He's going to have effect on the whole world. 23 says, it shall be diverse from all kingdoms. It shall devour the whole earth and shall tread it down and break it into pieces. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise. And another shall rise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. That means he shall take authority and power over them. He's going to destroy them, do whatever he has to do, but he will take over the position of 3 different people with one place. And see, he's going to rise up as a little horn. He ain't going to look like much, but he's going to have great power. The Word told us he'd have great power, right? Verse 25 says, he shall speak great words against the Most High. Again, this is telling us it's the same one that we talked about over in Thessalonians and also in Revelations. He's going to speak blasphemous words against God. And it says, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times in the dividing of time. In other words, he'll have power for 42 months. He'll be able to do whatever he wants to do for 42 months. That ain't going to be a good time to be here. Daniel 8, verse 8. Daniel 8, verse 8. Y'all's fingers getting tired? This is more flipping y'all used to on a Sunday, ain't it? Daniel chapter 8, verse 8. Therefore the he-goat waxed very great when he was strong, and the great horn was broken, for it came up for 4 notable ones toward the 4 winds of heaven. And out of one of them came forth a little horn, and waxed exceeding great toward the south and toward the east and toward the pleasant land, toward Jerusalem. And it waxed great even to the host of heaven, and it came and it cast down some of the hosts of the stars to the ground and stamped upon them. Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. In other words, this is beginning to tell about when he will go into the temple and he will defile it. Listen, that temple ceremony still goes on today. If you go to Israel, the people that are of the Jewish nation, when you go there, they still go in to the Holy of Holies just like they always did. They still do that. Do y'all realize that? They didn't stop. They still believe, there's a group that still believes Jesus hadn't come. There's still a group over there that still go in. They put a rope around the priest. They send him into the Holy of Holies. If he dies, they jerk him out. It's the same as it was then. That hadn't changed. But here this tells us that he will go in and he will begin to change everything. And he'll take away the daily sacrifice. And it says that he will defile the sanctuary. Verse 12 said it. And a host was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression. And it cast down the truth to the ground. and it practiced